I'm Charlie Bride of Gold Derby, and today I'm talking with Nazrin Choudhury, the director and writer of the short film Red, White, and Blue, which has just been shortlisted for the Best Live Action Short Film category at the Oscars. First question I wanted to ask you was, it's a very personal yet universal story that you're telling here, and I'm curious as to were there any aspects of the story that came from things you heard from other women's stories who had been in similar situations?
Yeah, I mean, you cannot escape the fact that abortion is healthcare and that many people with reproductive rights need to access this medical procedure. And it's something that I actually had to access myself once upon a time, in the way that we're hearing about people who don't have viable pregnancies. And it being a risk to the mother's life. I had two young daughters at the time. And so, therefore, when I was trying to have my third child and that wasn't viable, it was, without that procedure, I wouldn't have been alive to be able to be the mother to my two daughters today. So, that happened while I was in the UK. I've been living in America for the last, over a decade or so. And so I had become used to accepting that kind of healthcare, that procedure as a universal right, and thought that was the case in the United States of America until the decision in 2022 that reversed that. I think we all heard stories and knew friends even before that decision was reversed and what they had been through. So now to have that taken away from them, really, that was what prompted me to sit down and write a story that wasn't really about trying to get into the politics of the situation, but just trying to get into the realities of what the repercussions were for everyday Americans who needed it for whatever reason that they needed such important healthcare.
It always feels like with this, especially because it was a legal decision that came down, that with the legalese of everything can be so removed from the actual experiences that people have with this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's there are many people making decisions, but without cognizance of the real and actual human cost of some of those decisions. And so for me, it was really important to tell a really characterful and nuanced tale about a young single mother, Rachel Johnson, played so wonderfully by Brittany Snow, and to just bring in the grounded reality of what this means and the obstacles faced by so many people, and just to show in this kind of slice of life kind of way that reality, and do the thing that storytellers do, which is to shine a lens on that kind of suffering, but with moments of uplifting joy. Because one of the things that this film is also, if you've watched it, a celebration of motherhood and what it means to be a mother. So those two things were never absent from me and my mind in terms of how I was conceiving this. But yeah, it's like separating out the legalities and the politics of it all. Of course, we still need to discuss that because those things affect us, but let's talk about it in terms of the human cost of it all.
So actually, you just mentioned Brittany Snow, who's, as you said, is fabulous as Rachel. And I'm curious as to how did you go about casting Brittany Snow as Rachel, and also Juliet Donenfeld as Maddie as well?
Well, I had some amazing casting directors working with me: Julie Tucker, Ross Mayerson, CJ Molidor. I had Brittany Snow on an early list of mine. When I was looking at people to play Rachel, I just really always loved her as an actress, even though she was in broader fare, very, light-hearted roles and very entertaining roles. She's just an actress who is able to emote very deeply, and you always feel a deep inner life within her. So she was very much on an early list of mine. And now, actually, I was I was mentioning to someone the other day, it's like, I can't really imagine anyone else but Brittany in that role. And that's when you know someone has really succeeded in uh, just becoming the character that you needed them to become. And that person feels like a fully realized human being because of her skill and talent on this. Juliet came to me through our casting directors as well, and I am so glad that we found her. She is just a phenomenal talent. She is so mature for her age, yet is able to touch into the youthfulness of who she still is because of her tender age. And so having a young actress that is deeply thoughtful, someone who understands her craft, like Brittany, honestly, watching them on set sometimes it was so interesting because they would just be able to interact and have fun and talk to each other and be singing. There's a road trip scene where they sing, and they're just, every time we call cut, they're either continuing singing or chatting to each other. But then as soon as we rolled cameras and called action, they would just be back on game. And Juliet was doing that just as much as Brittany, which just speaks to their enormous professionalism and talent. I'm just so lucky that they both said yes. And I think, it's really hard to not think of them as mother and daughter in my mind, because they brought both of those roles to life in all the ways that I could only dream about.
One of the interesting things about this film also is that Samantha Bee is an executive producer of this film, and I'm curious as to how did she come to be involved in this project?
Well, Samantha Bee is someone who is just, again, a very dynamic person who has been speaking about abortion and advocating for reproductive rights for a very, very long time. And in fact, if you watch some of her material, she could see this coming down the line a lot longer than a lot, much before most other people did, and had been speaking about it. And of course, it came to pass in 2022. And so for us, she was just someone who was a natural fit. We love that she is a female host in the, from the Daily Show, but then then Full Frontal, and everything she's done, even the podcast that she's doing right now about abortion. We knew that we talk about our elephant herd, which if you've watched the film, you'll know what that means. But joining this herd of uh, people protecting reproductive rights, well, she's someone who's been doing that for a very long time on a significant platform. And so we reached out to her, and she watched the film after we reached out to her and thought it was beautiful and just wanted to be part of it. So we're really grateful that she has come on board as our executive producer.
You something you touched on a bit earlier, because you spent most of your life in the UK prior, but you have been living in the US for the past decade. You've been saying, what is the biggest difference between how abortion is viewed here in the US versus how it's viewed in the UK?
So I have been living here, as you say, for the last decade or so, and I'm now an American citizen. And my kids, I have two teenagers who are going to inherit the legacy from the Supreme Court's decision in 2022 to effectively reverse Roe v. Wade. So this is something that matters to me deeply and affects me and those that I care about. If I'd been in the UK, I don't think that anyone sees it as an issue. It's just a necessary medical procedure. Like if you think about it, we have C-sections, we have seemingly medical miracles that are happening every day, but they're really human innovation and work and education that has come together to protect all of us and elongate our lives, so to speak. So in the UK, it would just be seen as a no-brainer. It's just something that's necessary and to be afforded to the people who need it. Interestingly, though, when I was living in the UK, I think it was about 10, 15 years ago, there was a big case in Ireland, which, is part of the European Union and is our neighbor. There was a woman who, unfortunately, did not have a viable pregnancy. She was quite a late-term miscarriage, but the laws in Ireland prevented her from getting an abortion. And really, like the term abortion has become so loaded, and it really shouldn't be. It's a procedure to help somebody like this poor woman who was not able to get that health care. And what happened was she ended up dying. And basically the people of Ireland were in uproar over this, that this could happen, and it changed the law in Ireland. And I think it changed society. Society spoke back to the courts and said, we need you to protect us. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this film, is trying to speak back and say, hey, listen, we need this. We're not asking for it because it's something that is just a flight of fancy that someone goes through. You know, if you go through this procedure, it's not easy. None of us undergo it with any kind of glee or joy. It's something that takes its toll on our bodies, and we don't go into it doing it with the kind of ease that people think we do. We need these procedures sometimes. And so Red, White, and Blue, I wrote that for us to be able to have that conversation and just say, please just hear us. And maybe it can change some hearts and minds and allow a conversation to be had, as I said, across the political divide, that then makes legislators understand that they're here to serve the will of the people. You know, the American Constitution talks about the people and what our needs are. And so, unfortunately, some of these things are happening in the wrong way around. The need isn't being seen or met. And in fact, it's being hampered. So, yeah, that's why we wrote the film and made it and have put it out there.
I remember reading about, I think I know the woman, I can't remember her name, but I think I remember reading about the woman that you were talking about, because her name was being brought up a lot when I think it was the voting to repeal 8. I believe it's Amendment 8 in Ireland when that went through by voter referendum by, I think it was like 2-1 when that passed, that her name was being brought up again. And, you know, it's interesting. I remember I was being taught by I was in a poli sci class years ago in college, and one of the teachers was a Republican congressman, and he was talking about how, of all people, Margaret Thatcher was a very vocal pro-choice person, which just shows that this has a very different view in the UK than it does here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've just evolved and understood that medical needs are medical needs, you know. Um, thank God for medicine. Thank God for the healthcare workers who are providing these services to the people who need them, because some of us would not be here today without that. So part of this film also, I hope, brings attention to those healthcare workers who are sometimes, you know, carrying out necessary medical interventions, sometimes in fairly dangerous situations, especially in this very politically active time in which these issues are being discussed both positively and negatively.
So, as I mentioned earlier, the film made it onto the short list for the best live action short category at this year's Oscars. What was it like when you found out that the film had made the short list for the upcoming Oscars?
Well, I think my kids recorded my reaction as I was reading it, and probably I should keep that video and not let anyone see it, because I'm sat on the sofa and I am just my mouth, my hands. I'm just like, yeah, I couldn't believe it. It's been such a passion piece for me to be able to tell this story, and to have then Academy members voting for it and seeing this film and understanding why we needed to tell this story and feeling like they understood the importance of that story. Yeah, it's, you know, I'm actually still reeling from it, because just this is this is so great for us, because it means people will see our film and it will start a conversation around dinner tables, and for people to see others who might exist in their own life. And if this just being on the shortlist means people will hopefully find our film and talk about it. And yeah, I'm so excited. I'm mumbling right now because I still can't believe it, but I am so ecstatic about it. It's a real testament to the cast and crew. Everyone works so hard on it. There are ways in which people gave to this film that I will always be eternally grateful to them for pulling out all the stops. So being on the shortlist is really, I think, hopefully as rewarding for them as it is for me. And I really hope this film, you know, is seen by more people, and the Academy continues to give the film its love and support, because yeah, a lot of people worked very hard to tell a story that they really believed in.
Well, Nazrin, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over this upcoming award season. And to all of our viewers, please like, share, subscribe to this, and make sure you keep going to Gold Derby to make your Oscar predictions in the lead up to Oscar nominations later this month. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.